I woke up and I was laying on my Holly Hobby pillow, cuddled up with my Raggedy Ann doll under my Holly Hobby comforter, just like always. But I could sense that I was moving. And when I opened my eyes, I realized that I was in the back seat of my mom's Monte Carlo. And when I looked up front, I could see Mom was driving, but I didn't see anybody in the passenger seat until I sat up and saw my baby sister asleep next to Mom. I whispered, "Where are we going?" And Mom kind of turned back to me and she said pretty excitedly, "We're going to live with Grandma." And I was like, "Okay, well, where's Daddy?" And she said, "He's not coming." And so that's how I found out my parents were getting divorced. And it was the middle of the night, and we arrived in Georgia just a couple of hours later at my grandmother's house. And Mom stayed with me and my sister for a few days and then went back to Florida to finalize her divorce. It was Christmas break of my first grade year, and so I was living with Grandma until I started school in Georgia. And once Mom came back to live with us, she jumped right into full-time work, and we didn't see her very much. She would go into work every morning, I'd go to school, and then we'd meet up at Grandma's house where Grandma would cook dinner and we'd all eat together and watch the nightly news before I was sent away to bed. And one night, a couple of years after we had moved in with Grandma, we were watching a report, and it's a story about this guy named Simon Peter Nelson who lived in Rockford, Illinois with his wife Ann. And the two of them had been having problems in their relationship, and Ann had decided to leave. And when she did, she moved to a hotel in Milwaukee just across the state border and left their 6 children at home with Peter. Peter had been trying to fix the relationship with Ann for a while, and he was working on himself, but it was one of those cases of it's too little, too late, and Peter got served with divorce papers. And when they came in, he kind of snapped. That evening, he went to his garage and he collected a rubber mallet and a hunting knife and went upstairs and started beating and stabbing each of his children to death. There were 6 of them, aged 3 to 12, and he went room by room and killed them. And he even killed their dog Pretzel with a single slash to the throat. He got in his truck and he drove to Milwaukee to find Ann in her hotel room. As he was there beating her, the police were called, and when they came in, Ann told the cops that Peter had said that he had just killed all of their children. When Ann told the police that Peter had claimed he had killed their children, they called the Rockford Police Department, and after a quick visit to the house, they confirmed. And his charges of domestic abuse were joined by 6 charges of filicide. I was only 7 years old at the time when I saw this account, and it shook me to my core. I had never considered that a parent could ever kill their child. Based on the fact that I didn't trust my mom very much at the time, I started wondering about her. You know, she had taken me away from my dad in the middle of the night, and then when she came back to live with us, she was pretty much absentee, and I didn't see her much. And at the time, I already had a tenuous relationship with my mom. Just a few months earlier, she had an argument with my dad when we were living in Florida, and I got up in the middle of the night after hearing them scream, and I went in to the kitchen and ran between them, and as they're screaming at each other, I just put my hands over my ears, and I was like, I can't take it anymore. You have to stop. And when I did, they both stopped screaming, and Mom took me back to my room and put me to bed. I wasn't quite sure who she was, and so after watching this report, I just became obsessed. And I started worrying about, well, you know, how that happens, and what does that look like? And are there any signs leading up to your parent killing? Was there any indication that their dad was going to stab a certain way about what it was like? I thought about the kids, Nelson kids. Had any of them woken up? for a few days, I obsessed over the details.
It got to
the point where I couldn't sleep. And for days, all I did was think about the possibility of being killed by my mother. And finally, one night, I got up the nerve and I got out of bed and I went to the living room where my mom was watching TV, and I stood in the doorway for a few minutes before she realized I was there. She looked up eventually and just said, "Well, Susan, what are you doing out of bed?" I said, "Well, Mom, how do I know that you're not the kind of mommy who's going to kill me like that guy on TV the other night?" And she just sighed. "Well, Susan, how do I know you're not the kind of daughter who's going to kill me?" It wasn't the most nurturing moment in our relationship, and as I went back to bed, I didn't feel any more comforted than I had before I asked the question. But from that point on, Mom and I knew where we stood, and our trust in each other was just a thinly veiled hope for the best.
That was Trust Me from Susan Kent. Susan is curator and co-host, along with Victoria Scroggins, of the storytelling show Tell It Brooklyn, which happens every first Wednesday of the month at the Fifth Estate. It features some invited storytellers as well as an open mic, and it's free. Susan is a performer and a writer who's told stories at Risk and The Moth and Yum's the Word, and a show I performed in with her a few years ago, Ask Me Stories, and a variety of other shows around New York City. She also blogs at southerndiscomforts.com. And just last week, she premiered her first solo show, Into the Belly of the Beast, at Solo Week, presented by the Tank Theater at Standard Toycraft in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And I did the sound and music for that show, and it went really well. It was a good experience. Susan will be manning the mic with Victoria again on Wednesday, January 6th. I feel like my outros have been way too long recently, and it's a short story, this episode, and so I think I'm just going to keep the whole episode short. So if you're on a short subway ride, this will work out for you. I just have a couple updates. One is that, contrary to what I reported earlier, looks like I'm probably not performing at Risk at the Bell House in January. I think I'm on standby, but I don't think it's going to happen. However, I did just get invited to perform in February at Union Hall in the How I Learned series, hosted by Blaise Allison Kearsley. It's a show I've long wanted to be in, so I'm really happy about that. And I'm not going to bombard you with the regular promotions for the calendar and the website and donating money. I just want to say that I've really appreciated the support I've gotten for this podcast and for everyone who's taken part in it and subscribed. And I'm thrilled that it's lasted a year, and I'm looking forward to bringing you another year of great storytellers and great stories. So I hope you have a wonderful holiday and New Year, and I will talk to you again in 2016.